Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our event today, Succeeding in the Virtual World, presented by BioAlberta, and LifeSciences BC. My name is Ryan Budden. I'm the Director of Partnerships and Events with LifeSciences BC, and thank you very much for joining us today. So just before we get started, just some housekeeping introductions. You will see that there's a chat function there, so we encourage you to please make sure that during any of the presentations, if you have any comments or thoughts, please put it in there. The more interactive it is, we love to have that. Also, you'll see a Q&A section in there, so you can post all of your questions. After each person presents, they will have a few moments where after they present, they will go into the Q&A and check out all of those. And then after all of the presentations are done, we're going to have a formal Q&A moderated by our President and CEO, Wendy Hurlburt. And if you're seeing any of the screen right now and you want it to be a little bit bigger, click on the top right arrows. There's the 4 little arrows, and that will make it full screen. Also in the Q&A, there's a upvote function. So if you scroll through there and you see a question that you also would like to have answered, please just click on that and it will rise to the top there. After all of the presentations and the Q&A, we will go into networking. That will take you back to the floor that you first saw there. We're going to have 3 rounds of 8 minutes each. We would ask that you please fill in the first 5 tables first and then the back of the room after that. And you will notice that all of our speakers have tables, so you're able to go there and join them and ask any questions and meet them. Also, just to move between table to table, you double click on the table you would like to join. You can introduce yourself for 1 minute and then chat about the event today. One important thing is please make sure that you wait before you move when the announcement is made after 8 minutes. It's just a little disruptive if people are moving in between the 8 minutes there. Also very important, when you're sitting at a table, please make sure you turn your camera and your mic on, otherwise that people cannot see you at the table. Also, I would encourage you to visit the LifeSciences BC, the BAM and BioAlberta lounges, as there will be staff from all 3 of our organizations there to meet you and answer any questions that you have. And also a reminder to make sure that you've uploaded your photo and your social media links so that people are able to find you. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the moderator and MC for this event, our LifeSciences BC President and CEO, Wendy Hurlburt. Over to you, Wendy.
Thanks, Ryan. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our event. As Ryan said, my name is Wendy Hurlburt, and I'm the President and CEO of LifeSciences BC. On behalf of LifeSciences BC, BioAlberta, and Bioscience Association Manitoba, we're excited to be hosting this Western Canada Partnership Series. This series, in part, is supported by the Western Economic Diversification Group and has been a great opportunity for SMEs from across Western Canada to connect, learn, and network. This is the 3rd of a 3-part series on maximizing opportunities at virtual investor conferences. Our first webinar was called Succeeding in the Virtual World, followed by Preparing the Perfect Pitch. In this final session, we'll be exploring accessing funding to succeed. We've assembled a great group of knowledgeable speakers to share their expertise, knowledge, and experiences. Operating in this virtual world has given us the opportunity to host this event and partner with Manitoba and Alberta, which is something that we've talked about for years, but logistics of travel and cost always got in the way. So while there has been a lot of challenges through COVID-19, there's also been a lot of silver linings, and one of them is to put on an event such as this. So, yay, virtual meetings. As we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm joining this event from within the ancestral, traditional, and unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples, including the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. Many of our speakers are joining us from other traditional and unceded Indigenous territories across this beautiful province and country. LifeSciences BC, BioAlberta, and BAM are all member-funded not-for-profit organizations supporting the life sciences ecosystems in our respective provinces. We're always welcoming new members, so please reach out to any of us at LSBC, BioAlberta, or BAM for more information about membership. So now on to the program. Our first speaker is Joanne Jordan, Business Development and Partnerships Officer of BioTalent Canada. Joanne where she's the point of contact in maintaining a relationship with the partners and partners members. She graduated with a bachelor's degree in mathematics from Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario. With 10 years experience in board management, fundraising, and event planning, she worked with 2 startups in Ottawa, including as Chief Operating Officer for an online marketing platform promoting local shopping. As a STEM grad with 2 children in post-secondary school and experience with the challenges of facing startups, she's very passionate about her role at BioTalent Canada, connecting talent to the jobs across Canada. Thank you, Joanne, and over to you for your presentation.
Thank you, Wendy. That was a wonderful introduction. I appreciate that. And thank you all for having me here today. I was going to say this afternoon, but it's still morning for you. So out here in Ontario, I'm almost on my day. So without further ado, I would like to start my presentation. As Wendy mentioned, I'm going to be talking about funding. It's actually very exciting. When I started with BioTalent Canada, they told me that I would have an easy sell talking to employers because I would have wage subsidies, and everybody likes to talk about subsidization, especially in today's world. So let me just get my program going. I just can't seem to. I could get my slides going earlier, and now I can't. Awkward. Sorry, I'm having a struggle. Let's try this. Okay, well, that's not working, so how about I go off the cuff? Let's see what I can do to fix this.
Joanne, did you send them to Tim?
Yeah, oh, there we go. It's working now. You guys having my slide sharing?
I do not see them yet.
Ah,
Let's
okay.
try one more time.
Okay, sorry.
No worries. As you would know, it happens all the time.
It does. Okay. How about now?
I can see them now. Are you able to put it in presentation mode?
Yes, I will. Let's try that again and see if I can change.
Yep, you're perfect.
Yes. Doesn't mean that we'll change slides though, unfortunately.
No.
Okay, well, we'll just stop sharing that and I'll just talk to everybody because I'm friendly like that.
Did you send them to Tim?
Anyhow, what I was going to do is present to you about BioTalent Canada and a little bit about what we do here. So BioTalent Canada, essentially we are the HR catalyst to the bioeconomy, so connecting talent to the jobs. And in doing so, we do a lot of labor market research because we are scientists at heart ourselves. And with this research, we're trying to identify skills gaps and talent gaps that there might be across Canada's bioeconomy. And in doing so, we have developed different kinds of projects and programs, such as online training courses. We've developed national occupational standards that we're working on this year as well. We continue to try to fill the gaps and this talent gaps that happen from post-secondary institutions all the way through to internationally educated professionals. If you would like, Tim, you can share my presentation if you already have it, but I can continue this way if that's okay. In doing so, we do actually work with a large network of partners across Canada, including LifeSciences BC, of course, BAM and BioAlberta, just to name a few. We also work with industry associations, employers, post-secondary institutions, many of whom are on the line today, and we appreciate that relationship. And so when I talked about that professional development earlier, we always work in concert and very closely with these partners and our network across Canada. So, oh, there we go. We got a presentation coming. So for wage subsidies, I always like to talk with a story. I'm on slide 7, if that helps, Tim. So here's an example of a student work placement program, or SWIP, as we call it. Jenna, this is a wonderful story from Clean Slate UV, because sometimes employers, our SWIP program covers essentially a co-op period of time, so it's a 4-month placement. And some employers and some students don't often feel that is a sufficient time for them to gather the information, knowledge sharing, and training. However, this is an example where Jenna took the app that she was developing from concept throughout the design process and finished the project in just the 4-month period. So it goes to show you that no matter what the time limits are, whether it be a 4-month period or an 8-month period or longer, these internships co-op programs, work integrated learning opportunities, all are very valuable for both the student and the employer. So to the next slide, please. With our SWIP program, as I mentioned, we are working in both biosciences and healthcare. And it does, as I said, give the opportunity for the employer to shape the future of the workforce, for the students to get the on-the-job training, and for post-secondary institutions to connect directly with employers and help again to fill those talent gaps, because what we launch from schools is not always what's being picked up by industry. So these kinds of programs are just another way that we can get involved and ensure that we're filling those talent gaps. And of course, it does give to the student that experience that we always, it's ever elusive. You need experience to get experience, but you have to have the experience to get the experience. For the student work placement program that we do have, we are covering both biosciences and healthcare, as I mentioned. And in the next slide, you'll see that the bioeconomy covers bioindustrial, bioenergy, agribiotech, as well as biohealth, which is, of course, a nice segue into this past year, where BioTalent Canada has also been supporting the healthcare industry. And on the next slide, you'll see we have a long list of what the definitions are of the healthcare industry, but of course, it's not limited to that. So I do welcome you to ask at any point in time questions as to if you are able to qualify for this particular program. For the employer, we do have certain eligibility requirements. However, they're not overly stringent. The employer does need to provide the student with full-time or part-time employment up to 16 weeks. And it can be work from home as well, of course, during these days. That's always an option. So as I mentioned, we do cover for the bioeconomy or healthcare. And by that, I mean the employer themselves could fall under the bioeconomy or the healthcare industry, or the job that the student is taking there could be in the bioeconomy or healthcare field. So they could be doing a bio-related role in a non-traditionally bioeconomy sort of institution. Wages, however, they cannot be combined with any other federal program because our funding does come from the federal government. We are required that the other percentages of the students' wages do come from your own wage pot, and the student must be added to the payroll. So because these are a wage subsidy, you need to put the student on the payroll, and then we provide the subsidies through that. For the students, there are a few eligibility requirements as well, in that they do need to be registered in school at a post-secondary institution, either part-time or full-time. They do not have to be a STEM program, however. They can be any program at that post-secondary institution. They do need to be a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident or refugee status, and of course, legally able to work in Canada. And the the application process is working in conjunction. So the employer, once you've hired the student, then that's when you'll work together with that student to put the application package together. The application package itself is relatively straightforward, as I mentioned, involving some employer forms. The student will then provide proof of enrollment and have some forms signed off by the institution to confirm that they are enrolled. There will be a learning plan and a post survey once everything is all completed. Now, what's really exciting about this year is, as I mentioned at the beginning, we do professional development, and we have designed in concert with all of those partners I mentioned, our 2 sets of training skills. So we have the essential skills fundamentals training programs, which covers an introduction to the bioeconomy, as well as reading, writing, numeracy, and document use, all bioeconomy related, all created with industry from our partners and from our post-secondary institutions and subject matter experts in Canada. So it's Canadian content in these training courses. And the second set of courses is our technical skills fundamentals training programs, covering scientific report writing, quality assurance, quality control, good manufacturing practices, good lab practices, and good clinical practices. So these courses are all available for those students taking a wage subsidy through BioTalent Canada. So it gives another example of connecting the talent to the jobs, because these students are going to be offered these training programs and offering the employer a bio-ready student to come onto their employment practices. As Sue is mentioned in the chat window, she is our main contact on the ground in BC. We have other staff that you are able to ask questions from, whether it be myself or any of my colleagues for the application process, Mary Carr or Colleen Hayes and our project teams. And as Ryan mentioned, we can ask questions in the Q&A, and I'd be more than happy to answer questions during the networking program as well. So that covers a little bit about the student work placement program, and I'd be happy to chat later. So thank you very much, Wendy, and I apologize for the trouble.
Thank you, Joanne. Fantastic presentation. Your passion on the program and biotalent in general is always infectious, and you are the ultimate professional, not be fazed by that glitch. I just thought I'd add, we have LifeSciences BC taken advantage of these programs, and they've been fantastic. We've had amazing co-ops over the last year and a half. I think we currently have 4 on staff right now, which actually doubles our entire workforce. And they have been fantastic as we've been running events and diving into all of our various activities, and have really increased our capacity. So please reach out to BioTalent during the break or through the Q&A and chat. I mean, during the networking, because it is a great program to take advantage of. And a reminder to put questions in the Q&A. So moving on to our next speakers, this is going to be a tag team from Global Affairs Canada. Our first speaker, Beatrice Osorio, I apologize if I didn't pronounce that correctly, is a trade commissioner Saskatchewan Regional Office of the Trade Commissioner Service, and works with companies in the consumer products and education sectors in Manitoba. She also has responsibility in the Manitoba-Saskatchewan region for the CAN Export Program, which I'm sure you'll get lots of questions about. It's a very popular program. Beatrice possesses more than 24 years of experience in customer relationship, relational intelligence, and business development. Beatrice's experience in the private sector, largely in Central and South America, with an emphasis on aerospace and the defense sector, allows her to understand the way of doing business in different cultures and the need to customize sales and marketing activities. Beatrice is fluent in Spanish, French, and English. And then her partner in crime for this particular presentation is Deborah Boyce. She's a trade commissioner also in the Manitoba and Saskatchewan Regional Office of Global Affairs Canada, and works with Manitobaan companies in the life sciences, creative industries, and information and communication technology sectors. She's worked as a trade commissioner with Global Affairs Canada for 16 years, and prior to her assignment in the regional office, she was posted at the Canadian embassies in India, Indonesia, and Trinidad and Tobago. So over to you two.
Thank you, Wendy, so much. We'll do the screen share and hope that this goes well.
We can see your screen. We just need perfect. There you go.
And did it
You're
advance?
good to go. Yep,
We're good.
It's advancing.
Perfect. So listen, it's so lovely to be here today. Thank you, Wendy, for the introduction. As she said, Beatrice and I are based in the Winnipeg office for Global Affairs Canada, and we're very pleased to join you today from Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis. I'd like to tell you a little bit about the Trade Commissioner Service, and I apologize to those who know us very well if it's a bit repetitive, but Trade Commissioner Service is part of Global Affairs Canada. We support Canadian companies that are going abroad through a wide range of funding and support programs and services, and our network of trade commissioners in about 160 cities around the world. That network includes trade commissioners in cities across Canada. As Wendy said, Beatrice and I are based in Winnipeg, and we serve companies in Manitoba and Saskatchewan. There are trade commissioners that cover the life sciences in Calgary, Alberta, and Vancouver, BC, that will be very pleased to support anyone who hasn't met the Trade Commissioner Service yet. And all the contact information will be on the last slide of the presentation. So a little bit about our services. We offer four core services, as we would say. These include preparing companies for the international marketplace, helping clients assess their potential in the target market with information and intelligence, providing qualified contacts to help companies implement their market strategy, and providing advice and assistance in understanding and resolving business or market access problems. We also have a variety of free programs that companies can tap. And I think one that might be of a lot of interest to your audience today is our Canadian Technology Accelerator program. So each CTA offers mentorship and advice from industry leaders in the foreign market. These CTAs are located in major tech hubs in the US and in Asia, and it's a network that is expanding. And they support firms in a wide range of sectors, including digital health and life sciences. So as I said, the CTA offers mentorship, advice from industry leaders, as well, once we can travel again, as office space in the technology centers that are shared with other innovators, and access to potential investors and connections, as well as networking in the technology business community. We recruit cohorts twice a year, and more information can be found on the website or through your local Trade Commissioner Service office. Why this is quite timely is that we are actually currently recruiting for our Digital Health CTA. It's going to be held in Boston, New York, and San Francisco. Right now, it is planning on being a virtual event, and the application, the deadline to apply is April 2nd. Again, all the information can be found on that website, or we would be pleased to chat with you further about it in the networking session. So among the other programs that we offer, as Wendy said, some that are very popular, are funding programs that companies can tap to support their innovation and business development activities internationally. The two programs that we're going to chat about today with you that I think will be of great interest will be Can Export Innovation and Can Export SME. So the Innovation Program is designed to promote and enhance Canada's international innovation efforts. The program offers grants and contributions to Canadian for-profit companies, academic institutions, and non-governmental research centers. It aims to help them to establish and formalize new collaborative R&D partnerships with foreign partners. The objective of the partnerships must be joint development, adaptation, and/or validation of a Canadian technology owned by the applicant. The technology must be at a TRL 4 or higher and be ready for commercialization within 5 years. The Innovation Fund provides funding for activities, as I said, up to the point where partnerships are finalized. These can include expert legal and business advice in the target market, applying for IP protection, and shipping the technology to the partner to determine feasibility. It does not cover actual R&D. That is the responsibility of the partners once they've signed their agreement. Now, as Wendy said, Beatrice is our Can Export champion in our office, and I'm going to now turn over the presentation to her to talk more about Can Export SME.
Thank you, Deb. Okay, so Can Export is our most popular program, funding program in our department, offering support for Canadian exporters. It is a grant and contribution program that helps Canadian companies to achieve the export objective. The program covers up to 75% of eligible activity, up to $75,000. So the program offers rolling intake, but it's very important, please, to plan ahead because it takes a little more than 3 months for application to be processed and decision rendered. Planning is very important. Next, please. So the program covers a variety of business development activities that help you penetrate a new market. Please note that right now, due to COVID-19, the travel advisors are remaining in place. So we are not considering any request for travel or participating in person at a trade show. So what activities are still available or eligible will be you can attend virtual a trade show. You can hire experts to give you an advice or do a research on your target market, or help to identify potential clients and partners. You can also adapt your marketing material for the target market. Hire experts to help you with your digital advertising strategy and advertising online in the target market. Your proposal can focus on between 1 and 5 new markets. So what is a new market? The definition is a country where the applicant sales in the previous year were either less than $100,000 or less than 10% of your entire previous sales. So make sure you combine on those requirements. Next, please. The program is open for profit companies that are active in any sector with a Canadian Revenue Agency registration number. To be eligible, you must have revenue between $100,000 and have fewer than 500 employees. Third-party representatives are not eligible for CanExport SMEs funding. These include agents and consultants. While we welcome projects from all sectors, we do not offer funding right now for projects that are focused on recreational cannabis, even in any jurisdiction where its use is legal. These include projects that focus on the cultivation and supply recreational cannabis, so as well any additional product related to cultivation or use. We strongly encourage that people are interested in this program to read the application guide way before applying. You know what to expect. In this guide, we also have some examples, very useful examples, of how to structure your proposal and how the assessor will evaluate your activity. Next, please. So this brings us to the end. We would like to hear from you and how we can help you with all the trade commissioner service that Deborah mentioned before, or with your CanExport application. The contact information for myself and Deborah is on the presentation, and as well for our colleagues in Alberta and British Columbia who take care of your life science sector. We will be pleased to help you and to answer your questions in the table. Thank you very much.
Thank you both, Beatrice and Deborah, for the presentation. A reminder to everyone to add questions to the Q&A, which I'll look at after our presentations are over. You can also connect with both Deborah and Beatrice directly during the networking. So on to our next group of speakers, another grouping. We have two associates from Torrey's. So first, Cheryl. Cheryl is the practice leader of Torrey's Life Sciences Group, a cross-border group in both Canada and New York. Cheryl represents the whole spectrum of biotech, medical device, and health technology companies, from startups to large public companies, as well as venture capitalists, investment banks, and academic medical centers. Cheryl advises companies in joint ventures and licensing transactions, financing, and mergers and acquisitions throughout the world. She has the sole distinction of being ranked in international and national rankings as a leading lawyer in life sciences in both the US and Canada, and has received numerous recognitions and awards, including, among others, LMG Life Sciences Finance and Transactional Lawyer of the Year, Best Lawyers in Canada, Life Science Lawyer of the Year, and Best of the Best, Leading Lawyer in Life Sciences, Canada's Top 25 Women of Influence, and Hall of Fame of Canada's 100 Most Powerful Women. I can honestly tell you, Cheryl's passion for the life sciences sector is infectious, and thank you very much, Cheryl, for taking the time to be with us today. Her co-presenting partner is Mike, who is also a partner at Torrey's, based in Calgary. Practicing primarily in the area of securities and corporate law, Mike has represented and advised both public and private life sciences companies in the structuring and implementation of financing, mergers and acquisitions, corporate sales, and recapitalization and reorganization transactions. As well, Mike has advised syndicates of underwriters and agents in the structuring and the implementation of financing and related due diligence efforts. Mike also provides advice and guidance on compliance and best practices with respect to the applicable stock exchange requirements, corporate governance manners, and continuous disclosure obligations. So I think everybody, you can see we are in good hands with having two very accomplished life sciences lawyers to share with us their insights and experiences for the next 10 minutes. Okay, over to you two.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having us, and thank you to BAM and BioAlberta and LSBC. I have to say, both Mike and I are delighted to be here. I think there's some background news, so someone may want to go on mute. We're really delighted to be here, and as Wendy said, this is the silver lining of COVID. You know, I commute between Toronto and New York. Mike's in Calgary, and I've always loved coming out west because of the creativity, the entrepreneurship, and but you know, the traveling can sometimes be a little rough. And this year, because of COVID, we've been able to work with a lot more of the Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver-based companies, and we really hope to do more. This Zoom makes it very, I'm hearing a little background news. I don't know. I don't know where that's coming. So we'll try to go on with this, with our technical, but the silver lining of COVID, as all of you know, for the life science industry, is that we're very appreciated industry and loved right now.
Yeah, I'm going to add, Cheryl, just if people are curious about the industry here on the TSX and TSXV, interesting stats that have come out was to say that in 2020, 5% of all new listings, and this is for public companies, obviously, but 5% of all new listings were from life science companies in Canada. And moreover, life sciences in Canada continues to represent 5% of all listed companies on the TSX and TSXV exchanges. So, you know, it's appreciated and loved now, but it continues to be the case in terms of numbers.
Thank you, Mike. So basically, this is how we're going to do our presentation, just like we practice law, with Mike interrupting me all the time. And that's how we do it best. We work in a team. So there's so much money pouring into this industry. Mike, are you hearing an echo for me?
No, I'm not hearing it. Sorry, Cheryl.
Okay, so I hope no one else is either. Just I'm hearing it myself. So basically, so much money is pouring in at all levels, and the investors want to go off the beaten path. San Francisco and Boston, the valuations are up through the roof, and they've done very well here in Canada. So we no longer have the excuse of saying the VCs don't want to come here. We're getting calls, they're hungry, they're looking for good deals up here. And they don't have to travel. I think we've all gotten used to doing business without traveling. And we have venture capitalists and investment bankers doing deals with companies they have never met in person because of our using the Zoom. So you don't need to be down the block anymore. And as we said, the public markets continue to roar. So we're going to the next slide. So while the public markets roar, that allows venture capitalists who fund earlier stage companies to get money because investors see this is a very profitable area. And they're getting good returns because they're taking their companies public. So the VCs want you to know that they're totally open for business. And they've made cross-border investments, they've done well. And by the way, there are advantages to being a Canadian company. There's some tax advantages to putting your IP here. There's the SR&ED credits. There's the credits that were previously mentioned here today. And the costs of labor here, it's highly skilled and not as expensive in some of in the Boston, San Francisco area. So how do you meet these VCs? They really want to meet you. So they go to these events to meet you and they want you to tap on their shoulder. The other way is through a trusted source. So your advisors, your lawyers, your directors, your seed investors, because it is hard getting the attention if you just send in a deck without it. So use these sources. The next slide is seed investing. So the angels, not angles, but the angels are going to jump in. And by the way, these angels, many of them are right in Western Canada. You have had risk takers in oil, in gas, and mining for years. And now they're looking more towards tech and biotech. And we are seeing many of our Toronto-based companies being funded, not in Toronto, but by Vancouver and Alberta-based investors. But you know what? It's really hard to understand what a life science company does unless you're a scientist in the particular area. Like I know what if someone describes an app to me, I guess I can understand it and sort of guess whether, you know, whether I think it, you know, the public would want to buy it. But how do we make this easy for investors? Because it's very hard to evaluate these companies. So basically what we've been doing is we've been holding small events for angel investors and venture capitalists to get to know each other. Hey, Mike, I now see where my echo was coming from. It was coming from your line. So you let me know when you want to jump in, but that was great to put it on mute for a second. So basically we're hoping that people will get together and share expertise. But let's say you want to invest in a biotech company. The real issue is how do you value it? Who knows, right? So you can issue common stock and negotiate some terms. But a lot of our companies say, you know what, I don't, like a lot of the investors say, I have no idea what the valuation is. Let's just kick it down the road. I don't want to spend a lot of money negotiating documents. And and by the way, if I'm an investor, I want the same rights as an institutional investor. And so nowadays there are two other ways of raising money. One is through the next slide, a convertible debt. And the convertible debt basically converts either at a fixed price, but more commonly at a discount to the next institutional VC round. You need to repay it if you don't do a round with the VC by a certain date. But I mean, the thought is if you don't do that round, you're probably not going anyplace anyway, and there's no money to repay it. So the question is, when do you force the conversion? And sometimes, at least, you know, a lot of the government funds like BDC, they will invest in convertible loans, but they'll say, listen, we want a choice of whether to be repaid or converted. Normally, of course, they're in it in order to convert. Mike, you may want to talk about how SAFE's got to be popular as an alternative.
Yeah, no, thanks, Cheryl. You know, the SAFE, which is an abbreviation for Simple Agreement for Future Equity, it's an even simpler document. There's no maturity. There's no interest. Basically, it's an agreement to issue the securities in the next financing round at a predetermined price. And what we're starting to see take hold, and Canada's a bit slower than our American counterparts, is that we're seeing a bunch of organizations develop these types of securities to facilitate quick and easy negotiation of what otherwise would have been complex legal discussions. So the SAFE, that was developed by a group out of California called Y Combinator. And their goal was to, forego that negotiation, simply agree to put X amount of money on based on a valuation, and upon closing of that subsequent valuation, your investment turns into that equity. And they have model forms of agreements that both issuers and investors can look at and discuss, and just focus on what's important without protracted negotiation. Similarly, other organizations, for instance, in Canada, there's the Canadian Venture Capital Association, and they've developed also model agreements in an attempt to avoid, and not that we have anything against this, but attempt to avoid lawyers kind of spending a lot of time on negotiating long documents. So they have model agreements based on U.S. developed precedents, such as unanimous shareholders agreements, share provisions, share exchange agreements, that are striking the balance between what venture capital firms want and what issuers want.
And by the way, at Torrey's, we took those documents and we also modified them to accommodate U.S. investors, and we've computerized them. And what we're trying to do basically is make it cheap and easy for the stuff that really doesn't require a lot of customization, and focus more on your real assets, which are your license agreements, your IP, and work with the small companies to be able to balance their budgets and put their legal spend in things that really will make a difference and provide value. So I think we were, just if you can go back one more slide, Mike, I think we were basically saying when you have these instruments, whether it's a SAFE or convertible debt, oftentimes there are valuation caps. There's usually a discount to the next round. The discounts can range from 20%, they can be less or more, to 30%. And there's also something that is negotiated called the most favored nations clause, meaning if you do another convertible debt or SAFE that is more favorable before you do that round, you get the benefits of those provisions. But these are really handy tools to have if you want to get financing done very quickly. And anyway, we are going to be available for any questions. Mike, any other thoughts that you want to leave in parting words?
No, that's great. Hoping to meet with some of you on the networking tables and in the Q&A session.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, both Cheryl and Mike. That was super informative. You did an amazing job taking what is a very complex topic and summarizing some of the key elements and things to think about. So again, please put questions in the Q&A, and Cheryl and Mike will be joining the networking so you can have a chance to connect with them there. We're going to move on to our last speaker of the formal session, and then moving into the Q&A. So Dr. Eric Atkinson is our next speaker. He's a Life Sciences ITA, or Industrial Technology Advisor, if you're not familiar with the acronym, with NRC's Industrial Research Assistance Program, commonly NRC IRAP. Before joining NRC IRAP in 2014, he was the Chief Business Officer of Reach Bio Research Labs, a boutique CRO he co-founded in Seattle, Washington in 2007, which specializes in providing primary cell-based preclinical predictive toxicology and efficacy assays for biotech and large pharma clients. Prior to that, he was the head of corporate development at Stem Cell Technologies, where he worked for 10 years. Dr. Atkinson's academic credentials include an MSc in immunology from the University of Manitoba and a PhD in biochemistry from the University of Alberta. Over to you, Eric.
Thanks, Wendy. And what just happened to my screen?
The gremlins are back. Are you frozen?
I am. My screen just went very large.
Okay, it looks like it's loading. All right, so you just need presentation mode.
How's that?
That's perfect. Do you want to try advancing before I disappear?
Right.
It did not advance.
Did not advance?
Good. Yep, you're good.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Wendy. Well, as you mentioned, I did a master's degree in immunology in Winnipeg at University and a PhD at University of Alberta in Edmonton. So happy to be able to tell this group about IRAP. That's sort of representative of all the places that I've lived and worked. I'm currently in Vancouver, and but can totally empathize with what the winter must have been for people from Alberta and Manitoba in the pandemic year. So IRAP is one of the key programs that the federal government has to support small to medium-sized companies to develop and commercialize innovative technologies. As Wendy said, we're part of the National Research Council of Canada, and our funding comes from the federal budget through NRC. Our mandate is to stimulate wealth creation for Canada through innovation, and we do this by helping to accelerate the growth of innovation-based SMEs by providing advisory services, connections to appropriate business and technical experts, and sometimes through financial support of R&D projects. So most people do think of IRAP as primarily a funding program, but in fact, we are mainly an advisory program. We serve over 8,000 clients across Canada every year, but of these, only about 3,000 receive funding, and the rest are supported with advisory services. Okay, so who's giving all this advice? The frontline people like me at IRAP are the ones that deal with SMEs, or the industrial research or the industrial technology advisors. So IRAP ITAs tend to be mid to late career professionals from a range of sectors. Generally, we have experience in business management, technical technology development, and commercialization, and entrepreneurial experience. There's over 250 ITAs across Canada that have experience in a variety of sectors. In terms of life sciences in the Pacific and Prairies regions, there's about 15 or so ITAs that I would say would have sort of biotech, medical device, digital health type of experience that's relevant to today's audience. But that would expand to well over 20 if you considered ag tech and food science, life sciences. So since I just mentioned Pacific and Prairies regions, this is a good time to say or to explain that IRAP is a national program, but it's actually delivered regionally. And each region has their own budget, and we have a bit of flexibility over how we do things. We can be a little bit different from other parts of the country out here in BC, but I think for the most part, Pacific and Prairies regions do things pretty similarly. And you'll notice at the bottom of this slide also included IRAP International Group. So that group works with their IRAP counterpart agencies in various other countries to develop project opportunities that involve collaborations between Canadian IRAP SME clients and SMEs from other countries. So a few things to know about IRAP funding, and first of all, to know that the funding that IRAP can provide to SMEs is not a grant. It's a contribution towards an R&D project. So that project has to have a clear objective, well-defined activities, and a clear timeline. So unlike a grant, IRAP funding isn't paid as a lump sum up front, it's provided as a reimbursement. So the client needs to have incurred the eligible expenses first and then claim for the reimbursement later, usually monthly. So since that IRAP reimbursement level for eligible expenses is not 100%, which we'll get to later, and since we only cover certain types of expenses that a project might have, the client has to be able to demonstrate to us that they have the financial ability to fund their share of the project costs and be able to bridge the gap in time between when they paid for the expenses and when IRAP reimburses them for it, which can be like 2-3 months sometimes from when you actually have to pay. So because of that, IRAP projects aren't really well suited for brand new startups with absolutely no capital and no way to fund ongoing operations. They're really for companies that have at least a modest level of initial investment, or maybe revenue stream or other ways of financing their operations. There's always exceptions, but as I mentioned at the beginning, IRAP's mission is to accelerate the growth of SMEs. So what can we support? Basically, we can help to support the cost of the technical team involved in R&D. So we can provide partial salary support for T4 technical employees that were working directly on an IRAP project, and we can also support some of the technical contractor costs relevant to that project. Usually the contractor firms need to be Canadian, but there can be exceptions under certain circumstances. And sometimes the firm might not be able to be in a position to hire an individual that they would like to hire full on as a T4 employee with benefits and all that, but that individual might still work for the firm as a self-employed employee. And that type of person can be covered under an IRAP contribution under the contractor category. But you'll notice that the reimbursement level is different for internal employees versus contractors. We can reimburse up to 80% for internal employee costs, salary costs only, and up to 50% for contractors. What IRAP does not support is included in the list at the bottom of this slide. So we don't support employee benefits, equipment and consumable costs, patent and legal costs, clinical trials, manufacturing, and travel. Although some of the international projects might be able to cover some travel costs, but these days nobody's traveling anyway, so that's a little bit moot. Okay, so to be eligible for IRAP financial support, your firm has to be able to meet these simple basic requirements: be incorporated and operating in Canada, have less than 500 employees, and have a bona fide growth plan that involves innovation and the development and commercialization of novel technologies. Basically, you're doing work that involves R&D that has technical risk. If you meet most of those requirements and you'd like to engage with IRAP as a new client, this is what to do. This is the 1-800 number. It's a national number that you should call. And depending on what region you're located in, you will be connected to a regional client engagement advisor, or a CEA. CEAs very, very similar background to IRAP ITAs, but they're the sort of the first line of intake. And rather than doing things online, they actually want to talk to you over the phone so that they can have a dialogue with you right from the beginning, ask you about your company, and they'll work with you to determine your firm's suitability as an IRAP client. And they might ask you to fill out a company overview. That overview is not an application for funding or an invitation to apply for IRAP funding. It's just a high-level questionnaire that they can use to get a better understanding of you and your company. And then if the CEA thinks that IRAP can help you out, they'll then connect you to an IPA that think that is a good match for you, either with a technical background or with experience that's relevant to your particular company. They might also suggest an alternate program or programs that might be better suited or a better fit for you if they think you're not quite ready for IRAP, or what you want to do or what you're looking for isn't really something that we can help you out with. So in a nutshell, that's the NRC's IRAP program. I only had a few minutes, so I skipped over a lot, but if you have any other questions, I'd be very happy to chat with you in the networking session. Thanks.
Thank you, Eric. Always informative. And Eric is very passionate about this sector, so he's a good person to connect with. And I realized when I was reading your bio at this Western Canada event, you actually have had a foot in each one of the provinces that is here. So you get a gold star for that. All right, we're going to move into our Q&A, and there have been some questions that have been posted. So if all of the speakers can turn on their cameras and mics, that would be great. The first question is for our friends from Global Affairs Canada. So we'll wait for some of them to get on board. Okay. Welcome back, everybody. Again, thank you very much for your presentations. Joanne, you've probably seen there's been a bunch of questions and comments in the chat on the BioTalent Canada programs. I think Sue is actively answering them.
Thank you.
But just so you're aware.
Yep.
A question about the CTA program. So what Asian countries are included in the CTA program?
Thank you so much for your question and the interest in the program. So right now we have CTAs in Japan, Singapore, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. Unfortunately, only Taiwan has a life science or digital health component. Taiwan has its current program is rolling, so it's not cohort based. You can apply anytime, and the website that we have on the presentation, you can filter either by sector or by country. I would just note though, if you're interested in an Asian market and we don't have a CTA there, please still reach out. If you're in Manitoba, contact me. If you're in Alberta or BC, the contact information for your local trade commissioner that covers life sciences is on the deck. Even if there's no CTA that you're interested in, we can still help you with market information, with contacts, with intelligence. Our trade commissioners are frequently organizing sector-focused events, and right now virtual missions that they can, feed you information. So please, even if there's no CTA in the country that you're interested in, please do, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We'd love to help you.
Thank you, Deborah. And just building on that, if you missed who your contacts were in Alberta and British Columbia on the deck, you can also reach out to LSBC for BC and BioAlberta for the Alberta contacts. We partner very closely with the Life Sciences Global Affairs Trade Commissioner and work with them. Before COVID hit, when we were all working in the office, they actually spent one day a week in our office so they could connect to the members. So,
and I'll put their info in the chat as well.
Okay, that's perfect. Okay, a question about the CAN export program. Can we look at the 100K or 10% threshold by lines of products? For instance, we have one existing product selling well over, and our revenue is over 100,000, and it got cut off, but I think it's saying that we're adding a new line. I also noticed in the chat there was a question about how hard and fast this rule is about the 100,000 threshold. So maybe you can comment on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So unfortunately, we can't break CAN export down by product line. It's really the company's total sales. In your last tax reporting year for revenue, you have to be over 100,000 and you have to be under 100 million. There's no flexibility on that per product line, and that's a global number. With regard to the other one about being under, depending on what you want to do, CAN export innovation might be a program that could help you. There's no minimum revenue for the innovation program, but I would just flag that the objectives of the two programs are very different, and what they fund it can be different as well. So it's really important to sort of look at both websites to see which might be more relevant for what you want to do, what might fit. And again, to reach out to the Trade Commissioner in the Calgary or Vancouver or Winnipeg office, and we can help you figure out if either of those programs, which one might be the best fit and which one you might qualify for.
That's great. Thanks, Deborah. I know in BC, we have many of our member companies that have worked really closely with Global Affairs Canada that have helped them develop markets and even figure out which markets are best suited for what their innovation is. So it's a great service for our SMEs that are growing. I think that's it for most of the questions. I think probably everyone is going to want to network and meet with each other. And as we've mentioned a few times, our speakers actually have assigned tables you'll see when we get back into the broader room. So please make sure you connect with them. This topic is one that many of the questions are probably very specific to the circumstances that the SME is in, so probably more suited to the networking anyway. I want to thank our speakers, Joanne from BioTalent, Beatrice and Deborah from Global Affairs Canada, Mike and Cheryl from Tories, and Eric from NRC. We really appreciate you spending the time to come and join this event and sharing all of your knowledge and insights. It's a gift to our Western community. Also want to thank WD again for in part sponsoring this series. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is the end of a 3-part series that we've been running. And I think we've had huge, great feedback all across the provinces. So we hope to be able to do it again. I also want to thank Ryan at LSBC, Rob and Trish at BioAlberta, and Kim and Raquel from BAM for working together to bring this partnership to life. There was a lot of behind the scenes planning, just how to do it. We were well on our way to having planned in-person events. So, you know, pivoting and creating it into a virtual event with such meaningful content, I think has been fantastic. I want to also draw your attention to some upcoming events. For those of you that may or may not be aware, BioAlberta is actually having their policy forum tomorrow and Thursday. So if you're interested in that, go on the BioAlberta website, or maybe they will add the information to the chat. We at LifeSciences BC have our showcase series on March 11th. This is a series where we run around the province, now virtually, it used to be in person, and showcase what innovation is happening in those respective regions. So we're super excited about doing Vancouver Island next week. We also have an event on April 14th where we're going to talk about how does a product go from the lab ultimately to a patient? And what this is really going to cover is what are the roles of the federal government, what are the roles of the provincial government in picking up innovation, and how does it make its way through the various organizations, Health Canada, PMPRB, CADIT, the Pan-Canadian Pricing Alliance. So encourage anybody to attend that. It is not province specific at all. In May, we'll have a Blake's Breakfast event, topic to be confirmed, but very likely on BC's leadership in mRNA technology, which is driving many of the vaccines that have been coming to market. We then move into a showcase series in Surrey, and then are planning a new event, which will be an international trade event for the life sciences sector to really create opportunities for our companies to be able to accelerate their opportunities for export and trade globally. So again, one of the key goals of this event is for bringing the SMEs to
Did we lose her?
Yes, I think we've lost Wendy there. So we'll just go back to, oh, here she is again. Hey, Wendy. We just lost you a little bit there.
Well, it happens to the best of us. The gremlins are alive and well. I was just going to comment on, as you go back into the room, you will magically appear at a table. And so turn on your mic and your camera so that people can see that you're there. If someone has set up their profile, you'll see their picture of them sitting in the chair. If they haven't set up their profile, you'll just see their initial. And as we mentioned, there are lounges set up for associations, and then the speakers have their own tables, which you'll see labeled. Otherwise, the tables are labeled with a number. If you want to move around tables, just find an empty chair, so to speak, and double click on it. The people that are at the table do not need to do anything to accept you into the table, but if you are at a table, you'll hear a knock, almost like a knock on a door, that will let you know that somebody's coming in. If you have any questions at all or have any problems, just jump over to one of the associations and they can help you there. There is, since we've had a few gremlins today, if you have trouble moving, which has happened randomly every once in a while, but not very frequently. But if you do have trouble moving, just leave the platform and come back in, and that will work. So with that, Ryan or Tim, whoever's in charge, can you throw us back, so to speak, into the virtual room?